another episode of The Reading Corner with me, Mr. M. Today I have another original personal story written by me, and this one is called Dee and Evo. Once, long ago, in a jungle where no man or woman had ever set foot, there lived a little monkey. He was very small, but also very quick and agile, climbing all the tall trees that filled his jungle home all day long in search of food to eat. Though nobody had ever called it him, he considered his name to be Dee. And though nobody would ever call him by it, he liked the name he had given himself. Dee's home was halfway up a tree, in an old hollowed-out section of the trunk that had been filled with soft green leaves by the little monkey himself. Each morning he would stretch his thin arms out of his home, opening his mouth wide as he yawned and let out a call to the rest of the jungle, wishing them a good morning as the sun began to shine through the canopy. Of course, there would be a reply of sorts, a menagerie of squawks and howls and echoing screeches from all over the jungle. Dee liked hearing all the other animals. It made him feel at home to hear them every morning. Though Dee's life was pretty laid back, there was one overlying issue that he faced daily: food. Finding enough to eat to survive was always a trying effort for Dee. The worst part was, the rest of the monkeys got on fine, eating the many insects that were inhabiting the tall tree in which many of the monkeys lived. Dee remembered the first time he had tried to eat one of those insects, and the second, third, even fourth. The problem was, the bugs in his tree simply didn't agree with him, and although the other monkeys could munch away at them, every time Dee tried to even take a nibble on the little critter, it made him feel ill. He had tried time and time again, hoping to take advantage of the nearby food like his brothers, but the little monkey's stomach would not have it. So day after day, Dee searched all over the jungle, hoping to find something to fill his empty belly. He just about managed, for the most part, finding a type of insect that he could eat that lived under small stones and pebbles. But there were days where he wouldn't find anything at all, and would have to go hungry. Those nights were the worst, when his rumbling stomach would make more noise than the nocturnal life of the jungle. As he lay in his tree, Dee stared into the stars, hoping to find some way to solve his problem. A few days later, whilst flipping as many pebbles as he could, Dee stumbled upon a huge boulder deep in the jungle, where his monkey family had never set foot before. This was the first time he had ever ventured so far from his tree. He was always worried that he would never be able to find his way back, but decided to travel further away as he was becoming more and more desperate to find some source of sustenance. He stood beneath the towering behemoth of stone, gazing up at it. Dee thought about how many bugs might be living underneath its huge underbelly, and his stomach rumbled at the very thought. Rubbing his hands together, Dee grasped the bottom of the boulder and lifted with all of his strength. Yet, no matter how much he tried, the boulder did not move a single inch. All day long, the little monkey pushed and pulled, but the hard, cold stone would not budge. It was beginning to get dark when he heard a noise nearby. It sounded like something big was coming. At that moment, Dee realized how late it was, and he began to worry that he wouldn't be able to remember the way home in the darkness. He was just about to set off when a huge pounding echoed through the jungle. Whatever was making the sound, it was very close by. Dee clambered as quickly as he could onto the boulder, hoping to avoid whatever creature had made the noise. Footsteps could be heard approaching Dee's position as he closed his eyes and imagined what terrifying monster could be so big and loud. When he opened his eyes, ever so slowly, he was surprised by what he saw. It wasn't a monster at all. It looked a lot like him. It was some sort of monkey, but much, much bigger than any monkey he had ever seen before. There were other differences too, such as this monkey not having a tail, or big ears like Dee's. It was big, strong looking, and it was looking right at him. Dee didn't know it, but he was staring into the eyes of a gorilla, and a large one at that. The gorilla let out a low-pitched grumble and a huff as he came closer to Dee, outstretching an arm as if to say hello. As Dee sniffed the hand of the gorilla, he wondered where it might have come from. There didn't appear to be any other gorillas with him, so maybe this one had travelled far, just like Dee had. Once, long ago, in a jungle where no man or woman had ever set foot, there lived a huge gorilla. He was very big, but also very strong and tough, lifting all the big boulders that filled his jungle home all day long in search of food to eat. Though nobody had ever called it him, he considered his name to be Evo. And though nobody would ever call him by it, he liked the name he had given himself. It turned out that Evo had the same problem as Dee. All the rest of the gorillas could eat all the insects that lived under the boulders that lay in his part of the jungle, but he couldn't. Just like Dee with the insects in the trees, Evo got ill every time he tried to eat the boulder bugs, so he was forced to search for other kinds of food. Like Dee, Evo just about managed to find some sort of sustenance, grabbing one or two bugs that he was able to catch in the trees. But for the most part, he just wasn't quick enough. While the boulder bugs were slow and easy for the bulky gorillas to catch, the tree bugs were much quicker, so even when Evo managed to find them without crushing the small trees that stood near his home, he wasn't quick enough to get his hands on them. This had led Evo to travel far away in search of bigger trees with more bugs to catch. And though he had found taller trees, he was still having trouble catching the bugs that lived in them. As Dee and Evo both looked at one another, it was almost as if they understood each other. They were kindred spirits on the same journey, and it had brought them to the point where their homes met, where the rocks were big and the trees tall. At that moment, Evo saw an insect scuttle across the tree next to the two primates, and hurled his arm at it in an attempt to catch it. Still, he was too slow, and his attempt had only resulted in another slightly dented tree in the jungle. Dee looked at Evo's defeated face, and then heard his rumbling stomach, and knew how to help him. Quicker than the gorilla ever thought possible, Dee flew around the tree, grabbing all of the bugs that lived in it, before holding his filled arms out to offer a feast for his larger counterpart. Evo's eyes grew larger than the hole in his stomach, as he couldn't believe the number of delicious tree bugs that Dee was giving to him. Without a second thought, he took the insects and began chowing down right there on the dirt floor. As he watched the gorilla eat to his heart's content, Dee turned once again to the boulder, hoping to find the strength to lift it and enjoy a similar meal. He pushed and pulled, but the result was no different from his previous attempts. It looked like the little monkey would go hungry for another night. Yet, as he was chomping and chewing on food, Evo glanced over at Dee and realized how to help the little monkey. He dropped the remaining bugs in his hands, letting his dinner scurry away, and instead lodged his hands underneath the huge boulder that Dee was trying hard to move. With one impressive lift, Evo raised the boulder onto one side, revealing a treasure trove of big fat grubs and slugs that lived underneath. With a single sweep of his hand, Evo gathered up all of the bugs and held them out to Dee, offering them to him as Dee had done for him just moments ago. It was from that moment that the little monkey and the large gorilla decided to help each other, living together in the part of the jungle where their two homes met, gathering food for the other and living happy, healthy, and full lives for the rest of their days. And that is the story of Dee and Evo. I hope you enjoyed today's original story by me, Mr. Ram. Please feel free to let me know what you thought, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.